Good morning, Freedom Family. I have made this video before in a different way. I want to try to make it in another way now so people will hopefully understand better. If I hire somebody to commit an act against you, let's say I hire them to come to your house, kill you, rape your wife, and kidnap your children, who is the greater threat? Me or the immoral bastard who accepted the money to do that, commit that act? In my mind, it is the immoral bastard who accepted money to commit that act, because they have a line which allows them to commit immoral acts. When I, in that case, would be too much of a coward to commit the acts myself. I would rely on people who are willing to commit immoral acts and accept payment for those acts. Now, if you remove, well, that's not really a good scenario. So if you look back at the mob, well, they was always going after the mob bosses, which I get. But the people, the enforcers, the people who was willing to accept money to commit immoral acts were the real problem. They went after the mob boss in the end, but they had to get all the enforcers first. Because once there's nobody to do what the immoral bastard at the top wants, then there's nobody protecting the immoral bastard at the top. Moral of the story is that the police forces, number one, are unconstitutional. Number two, they are the main problem right now. Yes, I understand the politicians make these laws and they're unconstitutional and yada yada yada. But right now, with the enforcement that's in place, if you remove those politicians, the new politicians will move in and shit will just roll on how it is. Why? Because this is the new zero. This is the new foundation for the country. What's going on now? This shit's normal. Violating people's rights, violating people's right to keep and bear arms, dictating who is or is not fit to own firearms, allowing one side to commit immoral acts, then arresting the other side for protecting their own property or lives. The police are the ones doing that shit. Yes, I understand it's the politicians at the top giving them the order. I get all that. You and me today, who are you going? If a war was to start today, if something was to start today and you were going to fix this country, who would the enemy be? Who would you be fighting? I had somebody tell me BLM over the weekend. Oh, that's cool.
Like, why?
You can go fight BLM, but you see what happens to you when you do. You can't even protect your own property against them bitches. Why? Because the police protect them. Why? Because they were told to by somebody. By who? Probably the people that pay them. And what do? They watch them burn and loot and rob and murder, and then arrest anybody who tries to stop them. So you can keep pointing at the, you know what, let's go another step. If you look back at the founding, King George, they could have sent one assassin to take care of King George to claim independence and that'd been over, right? No. They knew that because somebody would have taken King George's place and shit would have rolled on how it is. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. But they have no power without the enforcement arm. They have zero power. As I said before, back in the old days, when it was how it was supposed to be, when they go to like Columbus to the legislature and they would create some immoral or unconstitutional law that restricted the people, when they came back, they had to face repercussions for their actions. Then they said, hey, look, we're going to start this policing force that's going to make you safe. And then right after they did that, they said, hey guys, let's make some laws making it illegal for these people to do anything to us when we do this shit. And our police force will enforce those laws. And that's what you have now. The police are the problem. Yes, I'm a constitutionalist. Yes, I am anti-police. If you look back at last year when they started arresting moms in playgrounds with their kids and shit, the right started veering away from that. They started being anti-police. And what happened? Oh, mysteriously, after all these years, BLM came up with, let's defund the police. And what did the right do because of their idiotic polarization? Got to support the thin blue line. You're an idiot if you have a thin blue line on your truck right next to a snake sticker. Who do you think is going to come take your firearms? The police. Joe Biden's not going to get all kitted out with Kamala and go kicking in doors at 5 a.m. It's going to be somebody with a badge on. And when I say policing forces, I mean anybody from the one cop in the one town somewhere all the way to the feds. If somebody has authority over you, you are not free. And I understand that society, through indoctrination and stupidity and willful ignorance, allowed what to happen today. But society doesn't have authority over me. And that's what some people fail to understand. they have this much of the information and believe they have this much of the problem-solving skills. No. You have this much of the information and you add this much to the problem because you think you have all the information. We can keep pointing and complaining at all the politicians we want for the rest of our lives, for eternity. And all that's going to happen is they're going to keep oppressing us, making it harder on us, restricting us more. Until there's no enforcement to act out their agenda. Until there's no more immoral men willing to accept money to commit immoral actions that have a get-out-of-jail-free card called qualified immunity. Then I know that somebody's going to say, well, if you don't commit crimes, the police aren't going to bother you. They only go after criminals. Really, tell all the people that have had their doors kicked in because the cops had the wrong address or some shit and have killed. And yes, that has happened. You can look it up. It's not just one person. It's happened multiple times. The police are the problem. They've indoctrinated you to believe that the police are your friends. Call them when you're not safe. Call them when somebody bothers you. Hell, call them when you get into an argument with your neighbor at this point. If you get kidnapped, whatever, call the police. They're your friends. They're here to protect and serve you. They're here to protect and serve the shit out of you is what they're here for. You've been lied to and you've accepted it. We all have, because it never happened to us. Because the cops never unconstitutionally oppressed us. And when you have that mindset, you're full of shit. Because if they violate one individual's rights, they violate all individuals' rights. And I know that you're not going to understand that if you haven't understood what I've said so far. When you point at somebody, let's take the person with Down syndrome, for example. If a person with Down syndrome wants to purchase a firearm and they've saved up the money for it or somebody gives them one, hey, more power to them. They have every right to do that. They have every right to protect themselves in any way that they choose. And if you say they don't, what you are saying is that you yourself only has privileges that government grants you or can take away from you. Instead of worrying about the person with Down syndrome or the mentally ill person who you think's too dangerous to have a firearm, what you need to do is be worried about protecting yourself from that person if that person decides to act out. And the truth is that people that are mentally ill are far less apt to act out on other people as they are to act out on themselves. I mean, they would rather cut themselves or shoot themselves than cut you or shoot you. It's all a scam, and in the end, the goal is to 100% completely oppress you and enslave you. And you are buying into it. You are part of the problem. If you support the police and forces in any way, shape, form, or fashion today, you are an enemy of freedom just as they are. The police are the very standing army the founders warned us about over and over and over again. Go read their journal entries. Wake up, people. I mean, what's it going to take? Is it going to take for you to have your door kicked in? Is it going to take for one of your families to have their shoulders dislocated like the 73-year-old mom out in Colorado? Is it going to take for your kid to get shot and killed? Or is it going to take for your kid to get shot and killed because he wasn't able to protect himself because he feared going to jail and quote-unquote losing his rights, so he chose to leave his firearm at home, which left him defenseless in a situation where he needed a firearm? What's it going to take? Where's your line where you stand up and say, you know what? These bastards are evil and they are the problem. And if they no longer existed, move the police out. If there was no policing forces in this country today, do you think them fuckers up in D.C. would be doing what they're doing? With no policing forces at all? No, they wouldn't, because there wouldn't be a barricade between them and you. The community would police itself, and the community would probably, for the most part, believe that some of your actions were moral, and that's what the standard is supposed to be in natural law, morality versus immorality. We're supposed to be a common law country that lives by natural law, that enforces our Constitution on our government. We can't do that because of the policing forces they've created, they employ, they pay, and therefore they control. Wake the hell up.